Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Modern Farming Podcast, where we bring you insights directly from the field about food, agriculture, and the incredible environment we live in. And once again, Brad, we're extremely lucky. We get to talk to some of the most interesting people in the country, not just here in Florida, but it's always special when we do get to talk to anybody here locally. And this afternoon, we have Courtney and Jennifer, part of the Florida Ag Experience, and what an experience it is. I've seen you ladies at the fair several years in a row, and the whole trailer thing and what you're doing. And I think it's so great because it gets kids and adults right in there to do what they probably would have never been able to experience. So kudos to you folks for doing that and putting that on. I know it's not easy, and we're really happy to have you on today with us here at the Modern Farming Podcast.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. We appreciate you guys having us. We're excited to have some good conversations.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, look, if you could just introduce yourselves to our audience. We do have people, believe it or not, people tune into us from all over the world. So, like, Brad's really famous. But just for everybody who doesn't know, what is the ag experience? What do you both do at the heart of your business there?
So together, Jennifer and I are the Two Blonde Heifers, as we like to call ourselves. We are just really good friends. We're not related or sisters in any way. We started the Florida Ag Experience 3 years ago now. So the Florida Ag Experience is a way to connect consumers to agriculture, specifically the dairy side of things. We bring what we call a classroom trailer around to fairs, festivals, schools, events, all kinds of stuff like that. And we do live milking demonstrations. So we show people where their dairy products come from and how to support Florida dairy farmers. So it's a pretty cool thing that we get to do.
So great. And you've been doing it for 3 years now?
Yeah, so actually Jennifer is the original OG over here. She started at the Strawberry Festival 9 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So we started out there and then realized that we could grow it and reach a lot more people than we were reaching, which the Strawberry Festival is great, but if we could do more, why not? So we're actually in Orlando right now. We're at the Florida Federation of Fairs, which is we're considered an associate or part of that. And it's just a connection through every single fair in the state of Florida, which we found we get a lot of our reach. We go into schools and things like that, but at fairs, you get every walk of life. You get everybody. And some fairs, I mean, you get a lot of people. I mean, Strawberry Festival and State Fair are easily pushing 600,000 people through. So,
Wow. Wow. I know the Strawberry Festival is huge. Is it larger than like some of the fairs we have in some of these counties?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some of the fairs we have in some of these counties, I wonder if it's actually a fair, how they're considered a fair because their attendance is so low. But then you have fairs like Strawberry Festival, which they consider themselves a festival. And then you have State Fair. And then you have big fairs like we do in Jacksonville, like Clay County Fair, which they're a huge fair as well. So we have a lot of diversity here in Florida when it comes to fairs.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did this idea come about? I mean, how did you start the first one at the first Strawberry Festival?
It wasn't so we can't take all the credit for the idea. The original concept came from Southwest Dairy Farmers, which is actually started in Texas. That is where our trailer came from. It's where we purchased it from. And they do it all over there. They just never came to Florida. So I think when Strawberry Festival found out we had that trailer, they kind of reached out to us. And it's cool because they're right in our backyard. And we actually sell our milk at a local grocery store up by Strawberry Festival. So we can tell people, hey, this is how you get local milk.
Really cool.
So the trailer is 1 or 2 Holstein cows and then you're just demonstrating milking and talking about the dairy industry and showing people how it comes out of the udder and goes up into the
the whole entire process. I mean, we like to call it from cow to counter, which is a kind of a cool idea that we like to talk about. And it's in front of your face. You can touch the milker if you want. You can touch the cow if you want. And the term we like to use, I can show you better than I can tell you. And it's a lot easier to explain concepts that people have no idea about by showing them. We do bring one Holstein. We have 3 or 4 girls that we choose. We call our show girls or our show cows, the ones that are super sweet and we love them. And a lot of them are shown by FFA and 4-H kids as young, when they're really young, when they're heifers or when they're yearlings. And they kind of grow up in that, I guess, the fair world, essentially, because that's where we take them after that as well. But we typically bring one girl and she stays there the entirety of the fair. And I don't think any of them ever complained about it. We get the occasional Amish donut every now and then.
Yeah.
You know?
So
Really cool.
As you're talking, I mean, you're doing schools, you're doing elementary, probably middle school, high school, and then you have a fair situation. So I know you're talking to kids in a certain way, whether it's elementary or middle school or high school. So at a fair, when you've got everybody from a 3-year-old to a 80-year-old, how is it just kind of a general conversation?
It's kind of both. We can tailor our presentation to be for anyone. That's the beauty of it. You kind of have to, with fairs, it's a little more mainstream. You kind of figure out you have more older, younger, where their education is. But we try to give anybody who has any questions about anything. Like we've gone to preschools, and then we do, what school are we going to? We're doing a vet program. So we get anybody from a
St. Pete Junior College.
Yeah. So we have junior colleges that reach out to us. So we have every walk of life. And the beauty of it is we're kind of the masters behind it. So we can kind of figure out what we need to pull out, what we need to tell people, you know, because there's some concepts that a 15-year-old can comprehend that a 4-year-old is not really going to comprehend, but everybody gets to see the whole process. It's just how much in detail we go into that process.
Yeah. So what got you into the dairy business? I mean, obviously I know the family run business, but did you folks go to school? Did you, are you practicing any veterinary science or anything like that? Did you have a passion for it early, or how did this all kind of grow?
So I grew up next to the original Dakin farm in Parrish. So I kind of like, I guess, followed that course. I did go to vet tech school. I am a certified vet tech. I did small animals and decided it just wasn't really my forte. I love large animals and I have horses and beef cows myself. So it was just more something that I'd rather do rather than mess with little biting chihuahuas all day. So
she'd rather deal with 2,000-pound cows.
They're horrible.
Yeah.
So I moved to Mayaca and started working at the dairy, and met up with her one day at the dairy, and we became friends, and all she wrote from there, I guess. Two blonde heifers later.
Yes.
That's a great story. So you originally, you did go to school as a vet tech, and then how many years was it before you got to the dairy and do what you do now?
So I've always done beef cows and horses and such. I've always had that in my life since I was little, and grew up, like I said, grew up next to dairy cattle. So I did 2 years of associate's degree, and then I was in small animal medicine for 15 years, and I really got burnt out on it and decided to start working at the dairy. They needed help there. Jerry did. So I've been working at the dairy.
Sucked into the vortex. I've
been working at the dairy.
Happens. That's exactly what happened with me, or that's what I feel like happened.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm telling you, this ag world will reach out and grab a hold of you, and you're like, whoa. It's amazing. There's so many different things. And that's how I think COVID is the reason I ended up out on the farm. Like, I was not raised on the farm. My family owns the farm and has owned it my whole entire life. My grandfather's a chicken farmer, but I was never that farm kid. I went out for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but never really like got super involved until COVID. And again, Jerry sucked me into the vortex. And I think
he's an opportunist, right?
The bank for being as most involved as we are. But I mean, he's like, hey, do you want to come out? And I was like, sure. And it just kind of, like I said, it just sucks you in.
Yeah, no joke. I grew up on the beach. I moved to Hawaii and went to the University of Hawaii just because I figured I needed to do something other than surfing. And then, here I am 26 years later. I am still very much into agriculture, and I have zero background, no family. And I agree with that 100%. So tell me, what is the state of the dairy now here in Florida, or just the dairy business in general in Florida?
I wouldn't say it's in crisis, but it's on the verge of being there. Like it's on a line where it can go either way. And I think that the important thing is getting the information out there, but getting the correct information out there. Because I mean, the dairy industry gets a lot of heat from a lot of different angles, not only farming practices and things like that, but also with animal care and PETA. And then you have people who, are pushing the alternative milk. And alternative milk is fine. I get it. Some people are lactose intolerant, but the way they market it as milk is bad and this is good is the thing you're kind of fighting. And then, all the misinformation that people have about agriculture in general, and just constantly fighting that uphill battle of, okay, where did you hear that from, kind of thing. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, and so, okay, wait, let me back up. You said we're not necessarily, maybe not in crisis, but we are on the line where it can go one way or the other. What are those two ways? So one of the things I think about, like, is the dairy industry on the verge of maybe dying here in Florida, or is some very large entity going to come in and kind of suck that up and take it away from the small producer?
No, I mean, so people are not going into the farming industry. It's just a fact. I mean, my generation, I have a child and I'm already 3 generations removed from the farm. So most people already don't have that connection to the farm.
Right.
We're getting further away, but I think there's also a side to where people are getting concerned that we're getting that far away and they want to educate themselves and they're looking for that avenue where they can educate themselves and properly know what's going on. I mean, 10 years ago, we had 400 dairy farms here in the state. I mean, now we have less than 40. That sounds pretty scary to me because the alternative is $15 a gallon for milk.
Yeah.
Or a bunch of
build new
chemicals
farms.
added in. Yeah. A bunch of stuff added in to make it here so it can get to us. So
yeah,
we risk losing local products. We risk losing family businesses. And that's a big deal. Most people, and her and I talk about this all the time, most people don't realize those things until it's too late, until it's reflected into the store, until it affects their pocket. Then it's, oh,
yeah,
why is milk $15? Why is eggs $7 or $8 or whatever?
Yeah, and y'all are big advocates for Florida grown, and
Absolutely. We're big advocates for local, period, wherever you are. So if you are in Maine, I want you to buy Maine dairy products. If you're in California, I want you to buy California grown products. That's why we love that Fresh from Florida initiative. It's great.
So how do we know? How do we know that our milk and our dairy products are grown here in Florida?
Well, Fresh from Florida is a great thing to look for. That's on your produce as well as on dairy products and different things like that. They're great at pushing things. In Florida, one of the big things we push is a plant number. So every jug, carton, container of milk that's produced here in the state and actually nationwide is part of a checkoff program. You go through the same thing with beef. It's got a plant number on it. So basically the plant number is located on usually the back side of the jug. Sometimes it's right on the label. Ours is our Dakin labeled milk. It's actually on our label. It says plant. But some of them like to give you a long serial number at the top by the expiration date. But if it starts at 12, it means your milk was produced right here in the state of Florida. Starts at 13, it's coming from Georgia. If it starts at 36, it's coming all the way in from New York. And it's important for people to look for those things, to know like where their food is coming from. So you want to be sporting stuff right here in your backyard, don't you? You don't want to be shipping stuff all the way in from New York. Lord knows how long it sat on a truck to get here. Yeah. And, with the citrus industry, it's
right.
the same thing. They're getting it from Brazil, but it's being packed here. So on the label, it says product of the USA on it.
Yep. A lot of it's coming from Australia.
Yeah, there's a ton
Processed
of it
in-
coming from Australia. Absolutely.
So what are some of the challenges? I imagine labor is a really big challenge, but is it a financial challenge, or is it some sort of environmental challenge? What is legislative challenges? What are the biggest challenges facing the dairy industry here in Florida?
I think there's a lot. Here in Florida, we have a little bit of a better system because we are able to feed a little bit easier here than a lot of other states and trying to buy stuff in. But here in Florida, we deal with a lot of stuff when it gets hot. Cows don't like it when it's hot. Our production goes down. You see a big hit in that. Like you were talking about labor is constantly on the rise. People, cost of living's going up. It costs more money. The cost of feed is going up. The cost of fuel is going up. But the one thing that doesn't go up that correlates with those things is the cost of milk. The farmer is still getting paid the same price. We were doing a show at one of our fairs, and one guy piped up and he said, I used to dairy farm 25 years ago, or however many years he said. And he goes, I used to get $20 per hundredweight. How much y'all getting now? She piped up and said $24.
Yeah, it's 25 now. So it's
and do you think 25 years ago our wages were the same? They've
Right.
Absolutely not. Your fuel cost, your feed, all of those things have gone up.
Yeah.
But milk prices have, they've a little bit.
And that it's so interesting because you see every other commodity on the planet: coffee, chocolate, oil, palm oil itself, right? The four most highly traded commodities on planet Earth, right? Those are tied to an economy and they're tied to a market. So as production drops, price goes up. Right? This is the game that OPEC Plus and the United States are playing with each other right now. It's all about production control to control a price. And a certain faction of OPEC Plus knows that, hey, look, if we make it cheap enough, American refineries have to shut down, right? And so every other commodity on the planet, even corn and soybeans, are priced that way. It's so interesting that milk or dairy products are not. And I don't know how anyone makes a living doing it this way. So it's really incredible that we even have 40 left out of 400, which is really sad to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have the amount of what it takes to get it into the consumer is what we try to push out, what we try to explain. And the more people we can cut out of the middle of that, the better. Now, and I will be the first one to tell you, marketing is not a farmer's strong point. They don't want to do it. They don't have time to do it. It's too much. The general public is huge. So pushing these people who don't want to do this and don't want to they just want to make it, and they just want to take care of the animals that make it, and then they want to let it go. But the problem is they don't make money like that. So a lot of farmers are having to get into like these retail brands, and some of them are moving to cheese. Some of them a lot of them are doing creameries, which is huge. But and they're having to diversify. Some of them are doing agrotourism, but some of them are subsidized. So they're looking for different avenues. Besides already being a busy farmer, they're having to look for other avenues to get these incomes to match. Because like you said, the cost of milk is not going up. I think the biggest time we saw craziness with milk was COVID. I mean, that was insane. I mean, they were limiting people in grocery stores, allowing them to only buy 2 gallons, but we were dumping milk in our front yard. Make it make sense.
Make it make sense.
Yeah.
Was that a nationwide thing?
The milk shortage?
Yeah.
I don't know how bad it was. I'm sure it was. So the biggest thing of the milk shortage, I was told, and a lot of people didn't think about this, was schools. All the schools were shut down, and they are a huge consumer for milk. Not for our milk because we don't bottle for schools, but nationwide, huge consumer for milk. So they were like, what do we do with all of this? We don't have any schools to put it into. But yet they were limiting you at the grocery store. You can only have 2.
Huh. Incredible. So I assume that the whole family and everybody is pretty involved in the political side of agriculture in Florida. Is that something you actively have to take part in just to keep the business alive or the industry alive itself?
It's something you have to actively keep yourself educated in. I don't think it's something that you have to, unless there's some changes that you want to happen. You do want to keep yourself educated because there's always different avenues. I know a lot of times they offer different subsidies for farmers and things like that, or different tax breaks or drought tax, all of these different things. So yes, farmers are very much, they know what's going on. You may think they don't know what's going on, and that's what they want you to think, but they do. They're very much involved. They're not dumb, good old boys anymore. They're very educated. Yeah. They know what's going on, and they know how it's going to affect their business.
Yeah.
That's the big part. And that's when you get them a little riled up. When, you're hitting people in their pockets, it's going to get them riled up a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, and I looked into Dakin and like your nutrition program, what you're feeding your cows. I'm a kind of a grass-fed advocate. And I took a deep dive into what y'all doing, and y'all go above and beyond what the typical dairy farmer does to get the right nutrition into milk, omega-3s and all that stuff. But y'all are feeding a lot of forage to your animals, which I think is really, really awesome.
I mean, Cameron, the farm she works on, I mean, he's constantly working with a nutritionist to formulate and make a better feed ration to make the girls produce more. And like you said, like I was saying earlier, when we change so much in the weather and we get so hot in the summer, that has a lot to do with, you got to change feed rations, and you have to make sure, all of these things are bound. Again, another thing that a lot of people don't understand. They don't understand how much science goes into just what we feed our cows. Forget the process and all of that other stuff. Just start by the basic of feeding the cow, the amount of science and effort that has to go into that. Now you got what the formula you got to make. Now you got to get it to your farm. You either got to grow it or buy it, and then you got to deal with all the logistics of getting there. And when you run out of things or when you don't have things. But the cool thing about being in Florida is we have grass 365 days a year. And we're the only dairy farms in the entire U.S. that has that.
Yeah.
So we do have, I like to say we have a superior product here in Florida because we can do that. But it does. We have the access to that all year round, and it's a really cool thing about us here in Florida. So,
yeah. So let's go back to the Florida ag experience. I'm curious. Everybody we talk to who does some sort of outreach, whether they're in schools, Brad was telling you about our guest previously here today. What are some of the things that you hear or see when individuals, kids or adults, come to the trailer at a fair and this is their first experience with dairy or cows or animals in general?
Can they see our faces? I'm just kidding. We get all kinds of questions, and fairs are sometimes our favorite. One of our favorite fairs we started 2 years ago is the Jacksonville County Fair. And when I tell you it was a culture shock for us when we pulled up to a fairgrounds in the middle of an NFL stadium parking lot, because that's where they set up their fairgrounds. In the Jaguar Stadium in the middle of downtown Jacksonville is where their fair is. And they have livestock. I don't know where it comes from, but they have a ton of livestock, and we get people coming up to the trailer all the time. I've never seen a cow before. I've never touched a cow before. Is it a boy or is it a girl? And I'm like, ma'am, we just got done milking this cow. Does your husband make milk? And you guys giggle. We used to giggle all the time, but we had to stop giggling because they genuinely don't know.
You make someone feel bad.
Well, I mean, if you're 40 years old and you don't know a dairy cow's gonna have a baby to make,
Yeah.
You might be the problem.
My favorite is, oh, that cow must be a cow because it doesn't have horns.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a boy if it has horns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do laugh, but I also think it's really great because then there's the opportunity to educate, and
Absolutely.
that's the thing, look, we talk about it almost every episode. I always refer back to the same conversation we had several weeks ago with an ag education outfit out of Chicago, and they're dealing with just inner city kids in Chicago where they're surrounded by 300-foot buildings, and these kids, and not just them in Chicago, but every inner city, if you look at it, Philadelphia, New York, Minnesota, LA. If you look at these kids, some of their only experience with food is either from the grocery store, a fast food joint, or like a dollar store, right? Microwavable food, and that's their only experience. So I do laugh just because we know, and I knew when I asked that question we'd get some pretty good responses because, but it's also really a great opportunity to educate people. So do you have people that go to the ag experience and then make their way out to the dairy, or do you invite people out? Are they allowed to come?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we always talk about, we're one of the only dairy farms in Florida that's actually open to the public for tours. And the last time I think I checked, we are the only dairy farm that has our processing plant attached to our dairy farm. So we have the really unique ability of being able to show people the whole process of cow to counter. And we can go from cow to counter in as little as an hour. Now, we don't always do that, but we can. And that's the other thing of why we push Florida milk, because it's a fresher product. You're not shipping it in from somewhere else. It's not sitting on a truck for God knows how long. And I'm not saying that they do that, but I promise you, unless they're sticking milk on a rocket ship, it's not coming here from New York in an hour.
Right.
I'm just that kind of thing. So yeah, we always invite people to come out to the farm. We want to show you, we want your questions. And like we said, we can show you better than we can tell you. I mean, we have little kids walk up all the time and we'll be milking. That cow's peeing. And it's like, no, this is where her milk comes from. And then you point and you show where her tail is. And this is where she pees from. And this is where her baby comes from. And,
Ooh, I can only imagine the conversation at the dinner table that night.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we love that. We love being the conversation at dinner, especially if it's like an inappropriate. It's our favorite. I mean, I've had kids ask me the craziest questions, and I'm like, and some of them I'm like, I don't know. Let's find out, and we'll look it up. Like, it's approximately 345 squirts to fill up a gallon of milk. I never would have known that unless the second grader asked me. Like,
that's a pretty good question.
Let's find out.
That would be my son would be the same way. Well, like, how many times do I have to do it until I'm done?
Yes, exactly. But like how many? Exactly.
Yeah.
How long do I have to do this for? Can I count it down?
So what's next? Are you expanding the experience? Are you looking for ways to get into more events? What's the future look like?
Oh, we're always looking to get into more stuff, I think, constantly.
I like how you had to double check there. Like, we want to do more, right? Like,
Well, I'm more of like the like, let's do it. And she's like, wait, let's figure out the logistics and all that stuff. Hang on a second, wait.
Y'all have pretty demanding day jobs, both of you.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we have full time. So, I mean, we would both love to be able to do this full time. So the thing that started both of us was our passion for ag education, and specifically with kids and getting into school. So our goal is to be able to be accessible to any school in the state of Florida. Of course, in order to do that, I have to have a fleet of trailers and trucks and, employees to be able to do that. So that's ultimately our goal, to be able to have any school go, hey, we just taught a dairy science, and we would love for you to come out and kind of solidify it for the kids, or just be a tool to the teachers, because it's hard to get them. And I get it. It's hard to get them to do these extra things, like they have to be certified in ag, and they have to be certified to do this, and they have to take courses to teach this and that. And if we could just be a tool to kind of aid them and make it any teacher be able to pull ag into her classroom, that's our goal. In order to do that, that's going to take quite a bit of funding, but we get there. we're working on it.
So everything you folks do now is sell, like you're bootstrapping this thing yourselves, or is there some grants or schools are able to pay?
So we
How does
kind
that-
of work. We work with schools. Some schools are able to pay. Some Title I schools are not able to pay. For those that aren't able to pay, we have sponsors. They're local people in the community, local businesses out by us. You know, good old boys, mom and pop places, and things like that. That just share the same passion as we do, and they invest in us and help us go to schools and fairs, because that's what's making it possible right now is our different sponsors that we have. And I mean, we have Mosaic, and we have Detweilers, which is a local family out by us. If you guys have never been in a Detweilers, you absolutely have to check one out.
30% of my paycheck goes there every month.
Yeah.
I agree.
Florida
But they're,
Farm Bureau.
yeah, if we have Florida Farm Bureau on there, they're huge advocates for us. Jeb Smith, he does a lot for us as well. But just connecting those things, because I know people in Florida Farm, we know ag, and that's my biggest thing, is pulling people in who aren't in ag, because those are our target. Those are our people that I'm like, come here, let me show you, let me teach you. So reaching those type of people is big for us.
So schools reach out to you. I mean, you've got a website. They could find you on, what did you say, Facebook? It was.
Yeah, we have a Facebook page. They can reach out to us. We're working on doing a website. They can find us through emails. We do conventions and things like this. We'll go out and market ourselves. But yeah, they can just reach out to us, Two Blonde Heifers at Gmail, if they're ever interested in coming out. And we're open to anything. I mean, we've done anything from a small festival to giant fairs to preschool classes to anything. So if anyone is interested, we're open to travel and all of that kind of stuff.
So great. So great.
Anywhere in the state.
Anywhere in the state. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, it's all Florida, and that was at the beginning. Like, well, what are we representing? Like, yeah, we represent Dakin in our trailer, but we wanted to represent dairy farmers from Florida as a whole, because they don't have a whole lot of representation. They're supposed to. They pay into a fund too, but they don't get exactly the representation they could, or it gets put into lumped together. Because I mean, I'm sure you guys saw the Got Milk campaign. Everybody knows, you know, Michael Jordan and everybody's sipping the milk mustaches. But now there's still something like that, and there's still that much money being poured into it. But now it's called Fuel Up 360 or something like that, and it's lumped together with, you know, you should eat fruits and vegetables and dairy and balanced diet and all this stuff. And it's like, well, why is dairy money going towards representing tomatoes?
Yeah.
Why is any of that?
So where's the fund? What is the fund? I
So
mean,
it's called a checkoff fund. That number 12 we were talking about. So every single drop of milk that is produced here in the state of Florida is weighed. So farmers go by weight. So every 100 pounds of milk you sell, you have to pay, I think it's like 15 cents or some 12, 15 cents into this checkoff fund. It's a lot of money. I mean, the money that's coming from our farm alone could fund our mission to go across the entire state. Is how much money it is. It's a lot. It's a lot of money. And just like I said, when was the last time you saw a milk commercial?
Right.
Because the funds still there. The funds still get taken. The dairy farmers do not have a choice. That money is taken out before they are cut their milk check.
Yeah, it's a tax.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a tax.
And that's a national. That's also tied into a national deal, or is that specifically for Florida?
Well, no, it's specific. It goes. There's both. There's state and national. The problem right now is most of the money that's from Florida is going to the national. So there's a huge fight. Again, dairy farmers, you know, having to take on, you know, they don't want to go fight these people about why their money is going out of state.
Mhm.
They're too busy worried about, a hurricane that's coming, or,
Right.
how they're going to feed their that's what they're worried about. They're not worried about who's spending what money, who's going on what vacation, on what hotel, and who spent over per diem, and all of those types of things but they care. They genuinely care about it, because they're
Sure.
like, why am I spending this if I don't need to?
Yeah, or why am I spending it if I have to track it?
Right,
Yes,
exactly.
No idea.
Mhm.
Just to have
Exactly.
someone else do it.
Yeah.
And
So
so there's
interesting.
a huge thing about, why is all of this money going national when we could use a campaign here in Florida to push for Florida milk? We could
100%.
use a little extra, funding to, hey, let's throw whatever fair an extra amount of money, because they got a dairy program and they don't.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of fairs we go to, they don't even have dairy there.
Wow.
And
Wow.
for us as fairs, that's what we know. We know ag barns, we know livestock. Like most people goes to fairs, it's like, all right, first it's food, then it's rides.
Yeah.
Well, for us, it's first it's ag barn, then
Livestock pens.
yeah. So you get all of that.
Every fair has an agriculture requirement in order to be a nonprofit. So we help fill that requirement with these fairs and festivals. So that's why we're able to go to a lot of these things. So they have to have a certain amount of beef cows. They have to have a certain amount of dairy cows, which, I mean, our one cow helps fill that. Chickens, all of that. They have specific requirements in order to be able to put on their event. So
It's so incredible. I mean, how this is all getting paid for, and how, because you're right, like the Got Milk commercials, I mean, that was like every other commercial for a
I'm
decade.
pretty sure actually the stickers we still have
Yeah.
from Florida dairy farmers say Got Milk on them.
Mhm.
So there has not been a new milk campaign since Got Milk.
Wow.
It was everywhere. It was on every. I remember seeing the big cow, the dairy cow, on the billboard, and it was like, Got Milk or something. And
Every
Uh,
celebrity
wow.
they could get a milk mustache. They had they were all pushing for milk.
they need to get some. They need to get some of these millennials in there on the marketing team. Is what they need.
yeah.
Get some TikTok ads going here.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really, really great. So, if you could maybe just, I mean, I have a million questions. I'm sure Brad does too. But like, what's the positive side? Like, I know we've talked about a lot of the challenges. Do you see anybody who, and maybe this is just a pipe dream of mine, but like, I always feel like, do you have anybody coming back after they visited you at a fair or whatnot, and they come back a couple years later, and then now they're in FFA or 4-H, and they're really pursuing an ag career? My question is, what do you see with kids that you're dealing with? Do you see a genuine interest, or do we have some hope that some of these kids might come back to the farm and do what you all do?
So my hope is never to have them come back to the farm. My hope is to always have them as an advocate. And I work a lot with FFA and 4-H kids, and I tell those kids, every single chance you get to stand on that soapbox and advocate for ag, you do it. Because I wasn't that ag kid. I wasn't that FFA kid that grew up in a barn and knew all of these things, like pigs, pigs make bacon. You have to have a rooster to make chicks, and all of those different things. I said, most people don't. I tell them most adults don't know the information that you know. So if you can stand on that soapbox and be an advocate, please do. Our biggest thing is the number 12. When we tell people about the number 12 at my show, it's like you told them a secret like a secret menu type thing at Starbucks, and they're like, oh. And we're like, no, don't keep it a secret. Tell everybody.
I did not know that.
And it's a big thing for them. And they're like, that's so interesting. And some people will be like, well, I'm from Michigan. What's my number? And we're like, well, it's alphabetical order. So whatever state Michigan is in that alphabetical order thing, that's what number it is.
We have these magnets that we made up that we pass out at every fair and event that we go to for people to put on their refrigerator, and it's a picture of a cow with pink glasses and a jug with the number 12 circled, so that they could, to remind them that to buy that number 12 milk. So
well, if we're down to 40, if we're down to 40 dairies in the state, I mean, we can't afford to lose another one. You don't build new dairies in the state of Florida. Once one's gone, that's the end. It's something else. But what are the other 39 dairies? Is there anybody else advocating as you do? Are you the only ones?
I know Larson's is great. They do like an adopt a calf program, which is super cool. Teachers can sign up, and basically I don't know if they actually film the birth or what, but basically they film this calf. They give them weekly updates. They tell them all about this cow. The class gets to name them. They talk about weight and what they're getting fed and bottles and all that. And they follow them all the way, I think, through weaning, because that's about how long the school year is. But the Larsons are great. The Rux family is amazing. I know Sutton Rux, he's opened up to the public. He's doing dairy tours. He's got his own ice cream, which is phenomenal. And he does dairy tours as well, but he's set up a little bit differently than we are. He doesn't have a processing plant, but he has a carousel, which is pretty cool to see if you ever get to go check them out. But they've diversified. They've done kind of the agrotourism thing. But I want to mention those farms, of those 40 farms, most of them are under 50 head of cows.
Oh, okay.
None of the ones across the state, like the average dairy farm has like, I think 125 cows.
Oh, wow.
Very low. On Cameron's farm where she works, he's milking 2,500 head.
Wow.
The farm you visited, I think they're probably still around 16. I don't know what they told you, maybe 12, 1,600 head, something like that, what they're milking over there. But on average, the dairy farm they're not big sizes like that. So they are these small mom and pop organizations. And if you can find them and support them, we should. And like you said, we push local, because what you're doing is your money's going back into your local economy. You're supporting real families who are right here. And I hate to tell you, but Walmart's not sponsoring your kid's baseball team.
Right.
They're not coming out and I've never seen Target or Walmart or anybody like that at a livestock auction buying hogs and things like that. It's all small mom and pop places. I mean, we'll get Publix out there sometimes, which is awesome, but if a Walmart wants to come into a community, it should be part of their contract that they spend $10,000 every year at a livestock in the county, just the county that the Walmart's in.
Yeah, man, that's a great idea.
$10,000 to them, nothing.
That's an excellent idea.
But do you know what $10,000 would do to a struggling FFA chapter trying to get kids?
Right.
Oh my Lord.
Just the economics. Like my daughter is at FFA. She's president. She's shown cows the last 2 years, and once at the economics, at the end of it, when they're doing all the numbers of what they've fed and how much they spent on feed, and without even calculating time, right? They're just looking at feed and if they had any vet costs. Just the fact that when somebody buys, and now there are some businesses like Publix, Mosaic always seem to step up in these fairs too and buy a lot, but when they do that math and they're like, wow, I only made a few $100, that is kind of self-defeating. Like, well, I'm not going to go into that business if that's the margin, right? For all the work that these kids put in all summer long, right? It starts like now and it goes all summer long into January here for us. They put in so many hours and put in so much effort for these things for a large organization like a Walmart or Target to come in and buy that cow for a little bit more. It would make some kids year and probably give them a heck of a lot of more reasons to go into the business if they thought there was some light at the end of the tunnel and it wasn't a train.
And it would be no sweat off their back to do it. The thing that hits me is it would be not a hard thing for Walmart or some big corporation to send them in. And the cool thing is, even if they didn't want the milk, they can write it off a second time. They can write off the first time when they bought it from the kid and the second time when they donated the meat to a soup kitchen.
Correct.
I mean, it's a win-win for everyone at this point. So we try to push because youth in agriculture is important, but I don't know that pushing youth to be farmers is exactly where we're going with it.
Right.
Because trying to prove to them, like, if you're a farmer, you're doing it because you're passionate. You have it in your heart. And a kid that's 16, 17, 18 years old, if they don't already have that, you're not going to push them into farming. Because let's be honest, farming is not anything but glamorous.
Yeah. Well, not only that, just to secure the land and the loan is.
Yeah, to be able to do it. A new farm, there's no way.
No.
Like when our farm went up for sale, there's no way. People freaked out because, who can afford 350 acres these days? Nobody. Not the average a developer.
I was gonna say there's a few developers I can name.
Yeah, so there's people. There were people freaking out when our farm went up for sale.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to do what you have to do. I mean, you walk up to some of these farmers who've been farming their whole entire life, and a developer can stroke a check and go, "I'm going to take all your problems away."
Mm-hmm. It happens every day.
Yeah, you think real hard about it, because then you have people that are back here, farmers are destroying the land. We don't need them. So you're dealing with that, and you're not getting paid. So it's like, what incentive do they have to stay in it?
Right.
Yeah. Especially if the families moved on, you got a lot of farming families where kids have moved on, taking jobs in other industries. And so if you don't have that next generation going to fill those shoes, yeah, I can't blame any of these guys for the amount of money they're getting paid in Manatee County now for ag land. It just, I couldn't blame any of them for selling off.
These kids, they saw what Grandpa went through, and they're like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
Why would I do that?
It's got to be in your blood. You got to love to do it.
Absolutely. You do it because you're passionate and because you care and because you are deeply concerned, which everyone should be, about where your food comes from, and the fact that we control where our food comes from, the fact that we can grow it, we know what it's coming from. Like Jerry says, he who controls the food controls everything.
Yeah.
It's super, super important that we keep the ability to feed ourselves.
Do you think the average consumer understands that? I mean, when you folks meet a lot of people, and I would call them average consumers, meaning they're not in agriculture. Do you think they understand the power of their wallet?
No, absolutely not.
I don't either.
Because every day they make those choices to not support local farmers.
Yeah.
But if it hasn't been put in front of their face like this, they're not going to. Because there's so much information coming at us constantly. I mean, this thing constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got anything from now we have things like ChatGPT where you just type tips of your fingers, any piece of anything you want to know is right there. So if you have so much stuff flying at you constantly, you're going to go with convenience because your brain's fried. You don't want to wait till Saturday to get those local veggies that are grown by Farmer Mike up the road, and it's better for you, but it's right here in Publix, and so.
It's funny you mentioned ChatGPT. I saw something on like Instagram the other day. It says if you haven't taken control of your health and your diet yet, just remember there's med school students today using ChatGPT to pass their exams.
and lawyers who are writing. We were talking about this in my leadership class, how one of the guys had received a letter from a lawyer clearly written by ChatGPT because he didn't review it. He just clicked send. He's like, do you know how much trouble, like how bad that is?
Yeah. This is the second time I've heard this story this week. I had a friend in the Midwest who's going through some issues with a former client. Same thing. Their attorney sent a letter and he's reading it, and we use ChatGPT for marketing and all kinds of stuff. And he's like, this was totally AI written and they'd made zero additions to it. It's frightening. But I think the average consumer can take, I hope when they listen to this episode and most of our episodes that Brad and I do, we really try to hammer down on food, nutrition, where it comes from, how important the ag community is to our economy, both locally and nationally. And then we haven't even talked about food security or anything like that. But you brought up a good point during COVID. It was really important to know that we had some outlet here in the United States. It wasn't a huge outlet because, like you said, we get a lot of food from overseas. But there's a lot more that goes into buying your food at the local Publix here in Florida than just feeding your family. It's keeping family farms alive. It's keeping an industry alive. It's keeping an economy thriving. And that's the thing that scares me the most. And I've been in agriculture for 2 decades now, and it just scares me to think some of these kids don't want anything to do with it for, like what you said. They saw what grandpa went through. They saw what dad went through, and they got a better lifestyle.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't convince people, and I don't blame them, but I think there is some hope because people are waking up. I hate that term woke, but I love the meaning behind it. It means you're educating yourself. You are making decisions based on everything. You're not just taking in information from anywhere.
Blindly.
And people are really taking that with their food, and they're taking that seriously. And I mean, by us, we have a huge push for raw milk right now. People want raw milk because they want that connection. And I always say, when a farmer talks, you listen. Kind of thing, if he's telling you, I grew these and I picked them this morning, why would you want to go to Publix?
Right.
Organic
God,
products.
don't stop about organic.
I was at y'all's farm for the first time just a couple of days ago and picked up some milk and some cheese, and I was in awe, just to give you kudos, on when I saw all the activities for the kids and the towers, and I was just envisioning 100 kids. I know y'all do
the
summer
adult
camps.
boys.
I mean, that's a kid that's on the farm that has an opportunity to learn, and I'm sure y'all are teaching.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
farm kids are a different breed, and kids who grow up on farm, we always talk about how you don't have to teach a kid on a farm problem solving, because they're going to figure it out, because they're going to get themselves in situations they got to get themselves out of. You don't have to teach them sex education, because they see that all the time too. It's black and it's white and it's right there in their face, and they're like, okay, that's how it works. Great, move on. So, but all those improvements and stuff like that, that's from the grown boys.
That's cool.
You see the big sled hill in the back?
Yes.
That's from big boys with little boys. The goat tower and all that stuff. Yeah. That's Cameron's 4 boys. That's Jerry's 4 nephews. And they've done a lot with that place. They pulled a lot of people in, cleaned it up a lot. And
so awesome. So when do y'all folks offer the tours at the dairy?
So the best way to find or book a tour, so we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 3. And on Saturday, I believe it's 10 to 2. But tours are kind of, especially since we get into the summer, because it's so hot. I don't know anybody who wants to walk around a dairy farm at 95 degrees, because that's not fun. But they will be offering some of them over the summer. The best way to book is straight through our website at dakindairyfarms.com. Have all the information. I know they're doing a summer camp as well, which is really cool, to bring the kiddos out and give them real working dairy farm looks like out there. But all of the information, everything we have going on, we do fall festivals. Jennifer just put on a rodeo out there a few weeks ago, which is really fun. So we have events going on all the time out there.
Awesome. So dakindairyfarms.com, and they can find both you and Jennifer on Facebook at the Florida Ag Experience, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you both for jumping on with us. This is such a great conversation. Look, we hope to have you back. I know, every year we have some challenge, and I think it's really worth letting most of the public know that when we go through a hurricane, we got to clean up our yard. You all got to do the same thing, and then you got to find a way to get the farm back to normal. And I hope we don't have any of those kind of things this year, but I would love to have you folks back sometime in the fall and just kind of reiterate what we all talked about and see if there was any changes, because it's an incredibly important industry we have here.
Yeah, we would love to come back whenever, like I said, whenever we can stand on our soapbox, we're going to do it.
Absolutely.
Y'all are great advocates. It takes a lot to do what you do.
Thank you.
We appreciate y'all.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being part of it. Thanks you for jumping on and listening to us here at the Modern Farming Podcast. We'll be here every week. Join us next week as well. Hope to see you soon, and be well.
Take care.
See you
Bye-bye.
later.